Today we're going to look at the worst thermostat replacement that I've seen in a long time. It's really stupid. Let's get started. So like I just mentioned, I'm going to show you guys here in a little bit how bad a thermostat can be and how dumb it is to have to do so much work. But before we get to that point, I want to show you 5 cars that should be really hard to work on, but their thermostats are really easy. If their thermostat's really easy, why can't this one be really easy? It's really stupid design. So we're going to start off with Hoovie's 1946 Chrysler. So a lot of you just saw on Hoovie's Garage, where we talked about the water pump was bad on this. We showed how bad it was. But Danielson has already got it torn down. We're waiting the part to show up. But one thing we noticed when he removed the thermostat housing is this is how it should be. It should be so easy. I've probably replaced thousands of thermostats in the last 25 years. And they've never been so hard as this Audi we're going to show you. But look at this, guys. 2 bolts, maybe 4 if you don't want to unhook this little hose here. Boom, there it is. There's the hole where the thermostat goes. It's not hard. You put a new thermostat in, a new gasket, clean everything up, put it back together, put your hose on, and refill the coolant. That's the way it should be. I've got 4 more cars I want to show you guys before we get to the Audi, how crazy that one is. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So here is our 1981 DeLorean you guys have seen a video on recently. You would think this is probably going to be really hard to do this thermostat. Everything on this car is probably so hard to work on. No. It's right there. You might have to unhook this little ram horn shaped intake piece, which is just maybe 6 bolts. But then you get to the thermostat, replace it, put it all back together, and you're back in business. It's really not that bad. It's a little bit more work than the Chrysler we just looked at, but still totally doable. It's probably a couple hours you can have it done. So you would think with a name like DeLorean, and with a PRV engine in it, which are known to be not the easiest to work on, that they would be so complicated and so hard. But it doesn't have to be. Even the people that made this engine knew a thermostat doesn't have to be that hard. Let's move over to the next vehicle. So I do apologize for the little noise you hear up above. It's our heaters running. It is freezing cold here in Kansas. It's going to be in the single digits or negatives this weekend, so we're trying to stay warm. This is a 2000 Jaguar XK8 that just showed up for some other issues, nothing related to thermostat, but you would think, oh, it's a Jag. That one's going to be really hard. But let's take a look. We'll open the bonnet, not the hood. So the thermostat on this one is right underneath this black hose. I'll actually slightly push this plastic and you can see the housing. I think there's 3 bolts there, 3 or 4, that goes to this hose. It curls into here. It just comes right out. You put a new thermostat in, put it back together, refill the coolant, back in business. The most annoying thing on this job would be the bonnet being opening backwards. It might be kind of in the way, or, you know, I've actually worked on these and hit my head, where if you don't pay attention and you're grabbing wrenches and you go and it's right scraped down the scalp. You have to be careful on these Jags. But again, where it should be probably pretty hard to do, it's a European car, it's hard to work on. No, even the thermostat's easy on this one. Let's move to the next one. So I've had friends and family members talk to me about the job I do, and I mentioned we work on Mercedes and BMWs and things, and I always get the same response. Oh wow, those are really hard to work on, aren't they? Not really. Even on this, the thermostat is not bad. Let's take a look. So this is a 2009 Mercedes C300 you guys just saw a video on. But you can see, remove the serpentine belt, and there's the housing right there. A few bolts, and you can have that removed. Replace the thermostat. Again, back in business. Really easy. Not hard at all. I've worked on some American cars that are even harder to do the thermostat than this, and I know you guys are, okay, we get it, Car Wizard, but just wait. One more. So here's the 2003 Land Rover Discovery that we're fixing all the melted wires on. We're actually getting close to being done. But on this one, guess how many bolts it is to remove the thermostat? 0. None. Let's take a look. Look guys, the little opaque colored or tan colored bubble that those hoses go into, that is the thermostat. It's in line with the hoses. It's not mounted to the engine or the heads or the block, anything. It's out, hanging out in the open, connected to hoses. You don't even have to get any ratchets or wrenches at all. Just a pair of pliers to do the clamps, replace the thermostat, put it back together. So easy. This is one of the only vehicles I've seen that has a thermostat like that where it's in line with the hoses. It's not even connected to the engine or anything. It's kind of a strange setup. But the cars I've just shown you should have been really hard to work on. The thermostat should have been equally as difficult. But the theme I'm getting at here is it doesn't have to be that hard. Now let's head on over to the Audi. So you guys actually have seen a video on this recently. This is the 2000 Audi S4. This is part 2, or part 2 as they say. Grimes has actually been working on this one. We've got it all apart, and we knew it was going to take a few hours, but we just got to thinking. We knew kind of what we were getting into going in, but how crazy is this?
It seems a little ridiculous where they put the thermostat.
Right. It's not hard, but I just showed everyone on 5 different cars that it could have been hard to do, and it wasn't.
Right.
So why does it have to be here?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So we'll get this hood opened, and we'll show you guys all the stuff we had to take off to replace a $30 thermostat. Look at that, guys. The entire front of the car is gone. So let's think about that for a minute. So Grimes, you took off the bumper, which we could have been in the service position, but you wanted to go a little further because look at this, it's so much easier to work on.
Right.
You can literally sit on a chair without fighting with the 4-inch service position thing.
Right.
Screw the service position. You can literally, like I said, sit down and take it easy. The bumper is off. We've got it actually up there in the loft, out of sight, out of mind, so the paint doesn't get scratched or anything. But let's take a look behind us, all the stuff that had to come off to replace just a thermostat. So no, it's not the Ferrari V12. That didn't have to come out of this. But this table has several different parts on it. So what is this part here, Grimes? This is the harmonic balancer?
Yep, crank pulley. So basically, in order to do the thermostat, you're doing a timing job.
Yes.
So everything associated with removing the timing belt, the tensioners, all of that, everything has to come off. So yeah, fan clutch, both of the inlet tubes, all your timing covers, headlights, front bumper. You can do this just putting it in service position, which essentially brings the core support out, a few inches, and you can work down from the top. But the only thing separating, where we're at versus doing that was evacuate the AC and unbolt the cooler line and some electrical plugs. So it made a lot more sense, especially since this is going to be down for a few days, to not have that hanging out and, in the way. Plus, like you said, way easier. I would rather just sit here and do it like this than fighting through 3 inches of space to do it. Another thing that I've actually seen in shop with, and not that you're novice mechanics, but I've seen novice mechanics where they're working and the wrench slips and they run it down the radiator, destroy the radiator. It's just best just to get it out of the way. As you can see, we have the timing belt off, a lot of the covers and things to get to it. There's lots of brackets and pieces and pulleys, hoses, basically an entire timing belt job. And yeah, that was all because they tucked the thermostat right back here behind the timing belt. Right, so let me show you guys what we're talking about here. So this little, basically in a coolant tube, you can see the 2 bolt holes. It bolts right here, and the timing belt runs right in front of it and across this way as well. You can't physically get it out without taking the belt off. In order to get the belt off, all of the other things have to come off as well. And then once you get all those parts off, you can remove this coolant pipe, all that work for that.
So the customer actually said like 30,000 miles ago, they already did the timing belt and everything, the pulleys and everything, a service.
Yep.
And here we are tearing it apart again.
Yeah, so when I pulled the thermostat out, this car's got over 190,000 miles on it. It was the OEM. So, you know, it had a good service life. That's, you know, not that big of a deal. But, you know, it recently having the timing set, most of the timing kits will come with the thermostat just because of where it's located.
Right.
And, you know, I think that should have been addressed since it is kind of a wear item.
So you and I have both over the years been through so many different jobs where while you have everything apart, it would definitely behoove you to go ahead and do all the things, because this is what happens. You skip that and say, oh, it's working fine. I'm not going to mess with that right now. And then you get to pay someone a second time to pull it all back apart to do the job. So,
yeah, I'd say, you know, given what's involved, definitely would have been a wise choice.
Yeah.
To go ahead and replace the thermostat.
It would have been like 30 more minutes of work and 30, 40 bucks for a thermostat.
Yep. And so with this one, we are going to go ahead and replace the timing belt. Since it's got 30,000 miles on it. The tensioner and the water pump and everything looked, you know, pretty serviceable still. But the belt itself, you know, since it's off, that's a might as well replace it kind of deal.
Yeah, and the belt's only like 40 bucks, brand new belt. It's just not worth it to put an old one on that might get scratched, or maybe there was a defect and then it breaks and then you were the last one in there, you know. So it just makes sense to definitely put a new belt on. It's not that much more money, and it saves a lot of headache. I'll let you go back to break, but thanks for describing how crazy this insanity is.
All right.
All in all, I feel really bad for this customer. The timing belt job that he mentioned had already been done. I don't know where it was done. I really hate that we have to tear it all back apart to do this, but I didn't design the car, and unfortunately that's the way it is. Like we also said, we're going to replace the timing belt and go ahead and make sure that's all taken care of. Many of these kits, when you buy a timing belt kit, if it's something like this, they'll come with those parts. Like I imagine this kit would have come with a thermostat, because it's definitely something you do while you're there. There's so many jobs out there that an unexperienced mechanic or shop owner can get burned really bad. By taking so much apart, you really need to take care of all the things that are in that area and then go back together, so that it can stay back together and not have to come apart a second or a third time or more, who knows. There's other cars out there with similar situations. We all know about the North Star Cadillac V8, that the starter is replaced by removing the entire intake manifold. Now, it's not really that hard of a job, but while you're there, you definitely want to clean things out, make sure you get new gaskets, address any issues you see while you're there, and then put it back together. Definitely one that's really struck me as really difficult over the years, that's shocking, is like the Bentley Continentals with the W12. The starter is engine out. Several of the oxygen sensors on the exhaust, which shouldn't be so hard, are engine out. There's multiple other issues like the vacuum lines that can break on those on the early Continentals that run on top of the transmission tunnel area, engine out. Guess what? It's Audi VW. A lot of us that are into fixing engines, we're kind of gearheads, we all have those stories of while you're there scenarios. Just like on my Viper I'm working on, I can pull the intake off to go ahead and get it repainted to match the valve covers. But while I'm there, I'm going to do the coils and the wires and the thermostat, because it's so hard to get to otherwise. I don't want to pull the intake off another time, a second or third time. So I'm going to get it done right away. So there may be times that you take your car to a shop for one specific problem, and then you get a really high estimate and you say, well, why is it so high? And it's because while we're there, we're going to do this and that and the belt and whatnot, because we don't want to have to do this again. And have the mechanic explain that to you, and usually it makes really good sense. Think of the money that could have been saved in this situation if the thermostat would have just been replaced when the timing belt was done. We wouldn't be here right now. But it's definitely got to be done. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we're in single digits or negatives right now at the temperatures. And if this thing is not getting warmed up, it means no heater for you. You will drive down the road with no defroster, no warm air coming out anywhere. You will literally freeze. Your windshield could freeze. And this thermostat, as you could see, you could shine light and you could see all the way around the actual valve portion of it. It was not closing all the way. It was stuck open. That's why it wasn't warming up. So we'll get this back together. We get all these pieces back together with a new thermostat, new timing belt. The customer will have a nice warm car that'll keep them warm in this cold winter days. I just wish it would have been addressed, like I mentioned, when they did the timing belt job. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I definitely wanted to do this video for you guys to show you. I've had people ask, like, should I buy this Audi or should I buy this Volkswagen or this Porsche Panamera or something? They really are some of the hardest cars out there to work on. I just showed you in the shop multiple makes and models that sound like they're really hard to work on. They ended up not really being bad on the thermostat. But Audi always delivers on being really hard, or Volkswagen, or Bentley, or Porsche. They can be very, very hard. I don't know why that is. It's just always been that way. So if you're curious what kind of tools we've used to actually do all this work, check our Amazon affiliates. Link in the description below. We got tools that we use in the shop for sale there. We get a small cut if you buy anything. We really appreciate it. There's many more links in that description as well, like links to Mrs. Wizard's channel, Mrs. Wizard's Ways, all kind of cool videos there. And make sure while you're at it to hit the subscribe button to this channel because we're booked all the way through the month, which means more videos for you guys. Thanks for watching.